All right. Everyone's going to love this shared link. Willing to give Rumble Studio another try. Didn't it look cool with Viva last night? I thought so. Good morning, locals. Afternoon, actually, for me. Morning for you, maybe. God bless you if it's your morning. West Coast. Not me. All right, folks. Happy Monday! Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Don't forget, if you like the videos, to like them and share them far and wide. We're on YouTube, we're on Rumble, we're on X, we're on Truth, we're on Getter, but of course, the very best place to follow us is right here. peoplespundit.locals.com, peoplespundit.locals.com. Links to the public polling project are in the description below. And while we're not there yet, this week is sponsored by our friends at 1775 Coffee. All right. Look, why do I look so glitchy? You see that? Look a little glitchy. Let's get rid of some of this junk. That's what it comes down to. I am like one of those people who have a million tabs up because there's a million things I did want to show you. But one of them that I am, without a doubt, I mean, it's coming down to that I'm sharing it because I want to show it to you. That's probably slowing it down as well. But all right, we had a great book club yesterday where, of course, we had to get into some of the news of the day, and then right after that, I went over to Viva on his Sunday show where we discussed what's going on with the polling and the difference between analysis and cheerleading, right? And the problem is in this business for the cheerleaders out there, you're not going to make it long because every time you cheerlead for one side, you are going to be, it's inevitable. You're going to be wrong more than you will be right because one side will inevitably lose more than they will win. It's the nature of American politics. So you'll build a decent following in the short term and blow yourself up for being a shill. All right. So in the course of all this, though, it's just this, the information era. There's a lot of people that have a lot of things to say, but unfortunately, because they poison the well. And now we have to go back to the basics, and I apologize to people who may understand what I'm about to say, but apparently it's more the stupidity and whatever. I'm willing to say that some of it is probably just ignorance, although I don't know how it could be after all of these years and after all of these elections. But I apologize to you if you do know the material and you do understand what I'm going to say, because it's very clear there are a lot, I would say most people, who don't really understand the political landscape that we're in and what it means, right? And we talk so much about realignments, and we talk so much about different demographic groups and who they're supporting and who they're not anymore. And unfortunately, I mean, it's easy to pay lip service to it. Like, oh, yeah, I get it. But then when it comes to putting that knowledge into practice, there isn't that enough of an understanding very, very clearly. All right. And there's just a lot of people who pretend like they do, and they really don't. And we have to cut through the nonsense and get to the stuff that really matters. All right. First and foremost, we have to start by acknowledging a few things about the current political landscape. There is a Yuggov poll that is out this morning. It's bad for Donald Trump. However, there are a couple of things I want to say about it. And you know what? We can get rid of the other data that I was going to show you first, because I don't have to show you this poll. I mean, the bottom line is they're showing Trump pretty badly underwater. 39% approve, 56% disapprove. He's +4 on national security. He's +1 on border security. He's even on transgender issues. And he is negative on everything else. On jobs in the economy, -14. On immigration, -9. On DEI, -10. On crime, -5. I don't know why they're adding death penalty and stuff like this. I mean, on inflation and prices, -32. Housing costs, which is inflation and prices. Like, they added so much crap to this, guys. I mean, it's not even funny. Like, this is not I'm sorry. So while I am going to say that there are legitimate findings in this survey and that Trump is in trouble, he is. All right. And I'm letting some people finish the survey that they started over the weekend. It's part of our methodology. I don't want to get too much into it, but the survey probably, I think I have time to wrap it up, crunch it, and send it at least out to locals today, and at least some of it. And there's very clear deterioration in support for Trump among certain groups of people. All right. And some of those groups, you should know and you should understand how important they are to the realignment and what they mean. But that's what I mean, that we have to get back to the basics, because very clearly some people don't. They really don't get it. They're still acting as if this is 2010. They're still acting as if this is 2014. Some of them are still talking and acting as if this is 1980. It's not. This isn't a game of persuasion anymore. This is a game of motivation. A lot of times, I don't think people get this very core, basic concept about elections. It's when you see shifts in the electorate from one election to another. And for instance, maybe you reviewed the Pew Research voter validated survey, where they went back and they said, this is how groups voted in 2024. And, Trump won this many more of white educated voters, and he increased a couple of points. It was about 2 or 3 points, depending on which one you're talking about. It's not because Donald Trump convinced all of these other people to change their mind. There were mind changers, and we talked about them ad nauseum. That's not it. Donald Trump got other people to come out and vote that don't vote. He changed the electorate. People who did not vote in 20, who voted in 24. He changed the dynamic, and that will change the spread among different demographic groups when you look at vote preference from one year to the other. People act as if when we're comparing these things from one cycle to another, we're looking at the same exact group of people, and that they either made gains or had losses among those different groups, and they're the same people. And that is not true. Motivation is persuasion. You're going to change the margin when you change the electorate. When you get your people to come out in greater numbers, you will do better among the independents that come out as well, because you're going to also motivate the independents who are they lean your way, right? Like, there are very few true independents, right? So it's not that you're like winning independents by this kind of a margin and you're shifting it that much because you change their minds and that's all that's happening there. That isn't what is going on. You are bringing out at an additional rate the independents who agree with you. Even if you lose them, you're losing them by a smaller margin than you would have lost them if you had the turnout disadvantage. Do you understand what I'm saying? I know it should be basics and everybody should know this, but unfortunately, all day on TV, all day on podcasts, all day on social media, fake experts pretending to know what they're talking about push nonsense that is simply not true. Here is another truth that nobody seems to understand, which I started to level out on Viva Fry last night. Republicans cannot win midterm elections with midterm electorates. You cannot hope and keep your fingers crossed. Oh, God, please, economic news, get better. Even if you don't step on it like you've been stepping on it, assuming that you don't, and your messaging doesn't suck as bad as it has sucked since the honeymoon period ended in the second Trump administration, let's just be generous and assume that you get your act together. A traditional midterm electorate is not going to favor you because of the realignment. So when I hear people say things like, you know what, shut up, your concerns don't matter, those people don't matter, this person doesn't matter. Oh, you know what? This is your fault that you're blowing, that they're browbeating, and that is the right term to use. I hope it gets circulated a lot more than just me and Viva Fraud. Browbeating people that you need to vote into submission is the dumbest thing the Republican Party could try to do, considering where they are at and where the current state of our political coalitions lie. Democrats now have the structural advantage, not just because of the coalitions themselves, because Republicans are stupid and they blew redistricting. They gave it to fat Chris Christie and all of the establishments that are now riding the Trump administration. They blew redistricting, and Democrats got almost everything they wanted. So they already have a drawn advantage built into the map in the House. In order to overcome that, Republicans must perform even better than they needed to before redistricting occurred. That's a reality. They won the popular vote in 2022, yet still lost the midterm elections. And by the way, that's going to matter. We're going to talk about that electorate in particular. And by the way, the 24. We're going to talk because we have to, in order for you to understand what it means, what I'm telling you, what it means. The realignment has made it so Democrats now enjoy the advantage in turnout, the structural and the turnout advantage that Republicans once enjoyed before the Trump realignment. Older voters getting more Democratic, vote at way higher rates, as you all know. In the poll we were just doing, 65 plus is almost 95% certain to vote. 18 to 29, where Trump actually still maintains a remarkable level of support, even though it's dropped. It's declined considerably. Now, it's like it didn't decline. The biggest declines actually came among young voters, but that's because the 65 plus was already declining. They are 60% likely to vote. Way different. And that will show up, or it doesn't have to be the case. But the way that the White House is acting, this isn't my opinion. This is the numbers, what people are telling me. And I'm going to laugh at all of you when they lose if you don't pull your head out of your ass, because I'm going to think it's funny. I told you so. You're all a bunch of sycophants and you didn't want to course correct. So I'm actually going to laugh a little bit. I'm going to have a nice little chuckle. It's not too late to course correct, and it didn't have to be this way. Roosevelt didn't allow it to be this way. Once he took that working class coalition, he redefined it. By the way, book club, book club, book club. You would know what we're talking about. Truman coming after. He took full advantage of that. And he didn't just say, well, my voters are less likely to turn out. That's it. They acknowledged the realities of each of their coalitions. Republicans at that time had the silk stocking Republican, the higher income, higher educated, higher propensity voter. They could count on them. In layman's terms, it means you can count on voters to vote. This is why Republicans lost the special election in Pennsylvania. This is why Republicans won the special election in Florida by half the margin that they should have won it by in a very deeply red district. It's the reality of the realignment. They have more voters, but their voters aren't as certain or as reliable to vote. That's the case regardless of whether we're dissecting these different groups and we're talking about voters who do at least have more robust vote history. They're not like 1 out of 4, meaning they just showed up in 24, which, by the way, Republicans need many of those voters to do. Even singling them out, putting them aside for now, which is what the administration has done, to cast them aside. insult them. I mean, first they sent influencers to insult them. Now the president over the weekend insulted them himself, which is the biggest mistake for a social post I've ever seen Trump make. And honestly, I'm a little bit surprised. I never thought that Donald Trump would ever. I thought he understood what Rush and I had been talking about for years, but I guess I was wrong. You are the only one who can break that bond with these people, but you're going to do it the minute you start to act like every other politician. Not take responsibility or hold yourself accountable for what is clearly self-inflicted wounds. And by the way, I mean, all the SEALs over there, everyone in the White House knows it's a self-inflicted wound. You're the only sycophant idiot on social media right now still pretending it's not. They know it's a self-inflicted wound. So ridiculous. It's just so, of course. He's impulsive. Sometimes he does things like that. That walks up to the line of breaking the bond. And honestly, I got asked over the weekend, what does it look like? What's the best estimate between Iran and this? How much are we talking here? And I don't have a firm answer on that right now. I suspect that we probably will in the next couple of weeks. But as of what I'm seeing right now, if I had to guess, and I will be super conservative here, 7 to 10%. Oh, that's nothing. 7 to 10%. That's everything. It's the ball game. And again, I'm being conservative. There will be a drop-off in the 24 electorate versus the 26 electorate. The question is by how much? Because here is another reality, and here's another back to the basics that I guess people didn't. I guess we need to go waste our time doing. The economy's not enough. There aren't enough persuadable, high turnout, high propensity voters to win on the economy. Too many of them belong to the Democratic coalition. Not in a midterm election. If you were right and I was wrong, Republicans would have done better in the midterm elections in 2022, but they didn't. Let me show you something. Because this is what some people just don't seem to want to understand. They just don't want to admit it. Too many high income, high education, white suburban leaning Democratic voters and even independent voters who vote Democrat anyway. Too many of them don't give a shit about how inflation may be hurting you or even their own mother and father. If you were a candidate in 2022 and 2024 and you yourself personally knocked on doors, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. How many white women slammed the door in your face and said, I don't care? How many? We hear it every day. Every day. They don't give a shit about the condition of others who are in a worse economic position than them. They don't. They don't care. They have the luxury to care more about other issues like abortion or healthcare or Medicaid. Now they care about the victimized that the left tells them are victimized, groups and marginalized groups in our society. And they don't want things like the big, beautiful bill taking away healthcare from those poor illegal immigrants. But they couldn't give two shits about you and your job that you lost because of trade or illegal immigration or whatever. Bad policy. They don't care that you're struggling to pay your utility bill, your rent, hell, even maybe your mortgage. They don't care. That's the reality. Many of them are getting more and more fanatical as the year goes on. And again, Trump did better with this group overall, educated whites, in 24 than he did in 20. But it wasn't because he persuaded them to vote for him. It was because the people themselves that make up that demographic were different people. Had they all who voted supposedly or cast a ballot supposedly, I mean, let's be real. I think we all know there were a lot of ballots that went out in 2020 and were returned miraculously in 2020 that were not legitimate votes. We know that. That's why at least explains 30% in my mind. And we never did get to go over that in detail, but 30% of the 20 vote that disappeared in 24 likely just wasn't real. All right. That's my mind. That's what I believe from the numbers I looked at. But the rest are just people that got swamped by Trump bringing in other voters that did not vote in 2020. That affected the margin. All right. But first, before we look at it, I want to show you a nice little stat. I mean, it's not a nice little stat. It's actually quite it's quite depressing. If you are a Republican congressional candidate and you're looking back at the 22 performance to give you some indication of how you might need to do in 26, this should be a real problem for you. You should understand that the number on the screen right there is a real problem, because what happened in 2022 is something we don't normally see happen, but it again is the result of the realignment. And that is very simply this: voters who disapproved of the job that Joe Biden was doing to some degree. And as you can see right there, is somewhat, right, is the one that I'm obviously going to be most concerned with. But what you can see right there is that voters who somewhat disapproved of him, and by the way, what was the number one reason they disapproved of the job that Biden was doing? The economy. Whether it was inflation, the economy, various things, Republicans lost them. They lost that group of people. They lost a midterm election where the president had a 55% disapproval rating. There's several reasons why things happen in elections, folks. Several things. And look, you can see overall here, they lost 12% overall, whereas Republicans only won 5% of those who approved. That's because Democrats had a structural turnout advantage. Their voters, even voters who may not have been particularly happy with Joe Biden at the current moment, their voters still came out and their voters were still loyal down ballot. They got more partisans out to vote. And because they did, by the way, they actually did better with independents had they, and let me just go up. Whoop, did I actually pass it? No. Okay, give me a second. Go all the way up here. That's race. Pathetic, by the way, among pathetic performance among non-college, but not because of the margin, which I'll show you in a second, but because of the percentage of non-college that came out to vote. All right, there you can see it. Democrats actually won the independent vote by a hair because they did a better job getting their voters out in a midterm election that Republicans should have dominated. And because they did, they got out more independents that identified with them. All right, let me see if I can go back to that real quick. White man, college man, less than 50. There we go. White voters, college degree, Republicans did remarkably better with this group. Look at that. 50 to 47, remarkably better. They did great. White voters, no degree, 66 to 32. Unfortunately, they weren't 45% of the electorate because they could not get enough to come out. They even did fairly well with voters of color who have no college degree, about 7 points better than they're used to doing in a midterm. It wasn't enough because white voters are getting more Democratic. And they're not going to look at the next jobs report and suddenly change their mind. It's not enough. Republicans must change a midterm electorate, the composition of the electorate, in order to forget about make gains in the midterm. Sure, in the Senate, it's a lot easier to target, but in the House, in order to hold their majority, they must change the composition of the electorate. And think about How big of it was already a Herculean task. Already it was. They underperform still, even with Donald Trump on the ballot. Here is, and I want you to remember this because this is the voter validated survey by Pew Research. As you can see, among voters who voted in 24 and 22, okay, which is interesting because these are voters who did not vote in 20. Trump would have beaten, well, he did beat, but if it was only if the electorate was only comprised of those who voted in 24, of course, they would have, it's their electorate currently, and then those who voted in the 22 midterms, Trump would have stepped on her by 7 points, 51 to 44. Stepped on her. Republicans among that group, +3. That means that Republicans run 4 points behind Donald Trump among this group of people. Why am I caring? Why do I care about that group? That's the midterm voter, folks, the most recent midterm voter. Plus those who were new that Donald Trump got out. So even in that electorate, Republicans still failed to carry Michigan. They still failed to carry Wisconsin. They still failed to carry California 13. They still failed to carry Virginia 7. Should we keep going on and on and on and on? You understand my point? If you think the economy is somehow going to miraculously give them this advantage that is beyond any advantage they've had in the last 3 cycles, you're smoking something. You're living in a fantasy. Because of the realignment, it has always been the case that the number one priority for Republicans is to not piss off any of the new Trump vote and to secure them as a Republican voter in the future. Anyone who tells you that there's no problems between Iraq, Epstein, but let's be honest, guys, there were problems before these issues. I look back and there was no less than 3 titled episodes before the Iran situation, before the 12-day war. There was no less from the honeymoon period to before the 12-day war, no less than 3 damn shows, which were titled episodes dealing with him stepping on his own message or Republicans stepping on his message. Either way, poor optics, bad messaging. The only thing that's saving the Democratic Party from complete collapse, by the way, is themselves and their own incompetence and stupidity. Explaining to people in those episodes that you must convince these voters that the party is becoming more like Donald Trump and that Donald Trump is not becoming more like that party. You have to get rid of the old faces, the Mitch McConnells, the Tom Tillises. By the way, John Thune was a mistake. These people aren't Republicans like so many of these others who are really, again, they're not really analysts. They're just Trump supporters. They're just cheerleaders. Apparently, the people who are really tasked to do this work are not smart enough to understand this. It's just true. It's sad, but it's true. They rode the train of other people's ideas and another man's appeal, took the credit for it, and have no idea what they are doing. They don't understand these people at all. They don't understand their motivations. They don't understand their fears. They don't understand their loyalties. They don't understand their dreams. They know nothing about them. They are not blind, dumb loyalists who are just going to come out and vote because the other party is worse. That doesn't work. It didn't work. Did it work for Mitt Romney? Nope. 3.5 million working class voters in the Midwest alone, in the Midwest competitive battleground states alone, missing from the electorate. We've been over this over and over and over and over and over again. So pardon me for making the mistake of assuming that this was known information. Apparently, it was not. Apparently, there are still people who are either so deeply dishonest, they know this, but they're still trying to mislead people anyway, as if they're living in a different political landscape. They are not. This is the landscape. Which, by the way, ultimately, let me just say this as a quick break from what I'm doing. And I know actually I got to take a break here in a second, but as a pause, that's ultimately the problem that I have with the YouGov poll. I'm not saying that they're not right about Trump's deterioration with certain groups. We don't have him positive either on any of those issues. So but they're not. It's not that bad. But I am saying that there's a major red flag in it, and that's the recalled vote. The recalled vote is pathetic. It's actually a huge Harris win on the recalled vote. Hold on, let me just go back and look. 2024 vote in the sample of that YouGov poll is Harris 56, Trump 44. Well, of course, that's ridiculous. That's a 12 point, a Harris plus 12 sample in a Trump plus nearly 2 reality. So that sample is 10 points too far to the left. There is a possibility, and we don't wait for recall vote because of this possibility. There is a possibility, of course, that people are lying. However, I mean, you guys on locals, I showed you the link to the poll that was done after the bombing in Iran, right? I don't think it's any different in this poll. Hold on. I'll look right now. If one of you has it handy and you can look it up, I'm actually curious. I can't look at both at the same time. I can look at one and then look at another. But if you have those numbers for the recalled vote, I'd be really interested. But the fact is, I don't think they would have changed at all. 3,052 sample. Okay. Give me a second. I will read you the recall vote, even though maybe it is a little bit different, but you tell me. 5144. Is it still 5144? And the reason why is because we have too much of Harris's vote. They're the ones who lie. So even those who voted for Donald Trump, who now have an issue with Donald Trump, they disapprove of him either strongly or somewhat. There's not really a huge, there's always going to be some. That's how statistics works. But there's not really a huge or significant percentage of people who voted for Donald Trump in 2024 who now tell us they voted for somebody else, or they prefer not to say, or just flat out lie and say they voted for another candidate, right? Like a specific candidate. That doesn't really happen with Donald Trump in specific numbers. It never, in significant numbers, it never has. It did happen to Biden. It started to happen pretty quickly after he was elected. It blew up around the time with the Afghanistan withdrawal and the COVID, when it became clear that he wasn't shutting down the virus, he was shutting down the economy and blowing up inflation. That's when it really started to happen. Then Afghanistan just kind of steamrolled, piled on top of that. But with Harris, it was almost immediate that people started to lie to us and say, I didn't vote for Kamala Harris. We know you voted for Kamala Harris. And people always ask me, Rich, how do you know that? I know they voted for Kamala Harris. Some of them, with a 100% certainty, know that they voted for Kamala Harris because everyone has this cute little thing. It's called an API ID. And whether you're in the voter file, it doesn't really matter how you are. I mean, obviously you are. It doesn't matter how you take the survey. It doesn't matter if you come through an online marketplace or we called you on the phone or it's through a text message. You will have that API ID attached to your name. And I know whether or not you have said in the past that you voted for Kamala Harris. And you, of course, fit the demographics to vote for Kamala Harris. So we know roughly there's about 3 to 4%. And now I think, again, this month it's going to be 4%, right? This week. It's going to be about 4% that looks like a little over, it looks like a little over 1.5% of that comes from prefer not to say, and then the rest comes from someone else. All right. Now that's ballpark. So don't twist my arm on that. So where I'm going with this is that with the YouGov poll, there's only 3 ways there are only 3 options to how you could have gotten a Harris plus 12 sample in the recalled vote, because even though we still see problems with Trump, he's got big problems with independents, big problems with the new MAGA vote, that especially non-white ones, but he's got problems with them too. As I showed Viva Fry on the show yesterday, his approval rating among non-college white is abysmal. It should be non-college overall. It's abysmal. It should be much, much higher in the 60s. It is not. Low 50s is pathetic. That's anemic. But despite all of those issues, they're still willing to tell us they voted for Donald Trump in 2024. So there's really only 3 options here. One is your survey design is not good. All right. So that's the nicest thing way I could have put it. Your survey design is shit. It's garbage. It's trash. Either, it's the survey design, or option 2 is that you fudged the weights and you intentionally did that. And this is, again, another reason why I don't like to wait for recalled vote. There's multiple reasons, but one of the primary ones is you really shouldn't need to do that if you did the poll correctly to begin with. Sometimes it's just bad data and it's a bad poll, and that's it. And it happens to the best of us. It should happen to us 1 every 20, 1 every 25 polls. But in this case, it's not. It's either that they fudge the weights, or the third option, which is both. It's a combination of both. Either way, it's not a very well conducted poll. It's not. And anyone who's being honest will tell you, you can't throw freaking 50 issues in people's face like that. And they're redundant issues. So people react very poorly to redundancy in surveys. So what about cost of living, right? And then what about your rent? Like, you just said cost of living, like that kind of shit. That is very bad. And then what happens eventually is that the respondent doesn't want to really pay attention. They blast through the survey without even giving it, a real thought. And it's a myriad other problems that could happen. But regardless, that's the only way you're going to get Trump in at like 39% approval. I mean, he's not living the dream over here in our sample either, but that is like, come on, guys, exaggerating it to the umpth degree, All right. So, man, it's only 32:44. All right. Let me take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to look more at how these groups voted in the 24 election, so you can understand, given the Republican performance with and without Donald Trump on the ballot. See, that's what's so important. They still lost districts that they should have won, even with him on the ballot. That has happened all 3 times. They lost Senate races they absolutely could and should have won with him on the ballot. How do you think they're going to do in Michigan now, after the bombing of Iran, right? Trashing on these low prop voters. Mike Rogers he only got as close as he did because Donald Trump was on the ballot. I would say I guarantee he is going to get absolutely destroyed in that Senate race in Michigan. It's not Pennsylvania too. People are pointing out registration numbers going, oh, was this bothered by Jeffrey Epstein? Jackasses. Pennsylvania has been shifting to the right for years in registration. And guess what? Mehmet Oz still got crushed. Brian Fitzpatrick, he knows it. He's cooked. He's cooked and he knows it. And he's a moderate who knows how to survive that district. And sorry if I'm saying things to you guys out there watching like, hey, shit, why'd you just tell everybody we said that? Because it's true. Have the balls to come out and say it. Maybe then people will understand how dire this situation really is. At this point, the Republicans' best chance of winning a Senate race in the state of Pennsylvania is if John Fetterman leaves the Democratic Party and comes to the Republican Party. Otherwise, those clowns are not going to be able to win statewide at this rate. I don't care what the numbers look like. Inference modeling in the state of Michigan has been shooting to the right since 2016 at breakneck pace, even Minnesota. But these people are so dumb. They don't know how to capitalize on it. They don't even know who their own voter is. You can expect to win elections. You don't even know who your voters are. Good luck. Good luck. Good luck passing out pieces of paper at the VFW because you still think you're in 2004. I mean, these people just fucking clown show. All right. I mean, I laugh at this stupidity, and I don't mean it in a bad, because people are like, oh, these partisan Republicans get super mad at you. They're like, well, go laugh, Rich. Democrats are going to win. It's going to be the end of the country. What argument do you have to make to these other voters who you like have no problem insulting and screwing over? What argument do you have to make to them that you have been any different? If you can't make that argument, that's your fault. That's what I told you. You didn't listen, so I think it's funny. Yes. At this point, folks, I mean, that's just, it's kind of like, it's deserved. It's earned. It's deserved. And you got to move on. I mean, I continue to say what the deal is as we move forward, but, you can only lead a horse to water. You can't, get a hose and stuff it down his damn throat. All right. Let's take a break, right? Talk about our friends over at 1775. Anyway, you've heard the hype. You guys know I love this company. Maybe you've seen the new launches. Maybe you tried to grab them over here and they sold out. If you still haven't tried 1775 coffee yet, this is your shot, because again, they launched another 1775 starter kit for you guys. With the first drop, it's only limited to 1,000 units. And, we always try to get them extended, but I'll be honest with you, I don't know about this time. This starter kit isn't some dinky sampler pack. It's a full-on pack of caffeine freedom, baby. A bold dark roast that hits harder than a CNN fact check. I love that line. A smooth medium roast for strength without bitterness. And Vitality mushroom coffee for clean energy, laser focus without the crash. All single origin, small batch, mold-free, and toxin-free. Plus, you're also getting a gold cool spoon because freedom isn't scooped with plastic homes. A frother strong enough to stir up your coffee and your mother-in-law's political opinions. And a black 1775 tumbler that says, I don't take life advice or caffeine from a woke sea witch. $170 worth of coffee and gear, yours for $99. This is for the ones who have been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble, support our show, and wondering if it's actually worth it. It is. Go to 1775coffee.com/TPP. The link is in the description below, guys. Grab your starter kit before they're gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something, just like Rumble does. Start your day with coffee that actually backs what you believe. Right? Right? Love this coffee company. So good. So good. By the way, as some of you know, I can't drink coffee like I used to. But 1775 is like super easy on my gut, and I'm able to get it on most days. I could probably get two if I wanted to, but I'm not pushing my luck, and I take my cup of coffee for the day and love it, enjoy it. It's delicious. Move on. All right. Let me get like a 30-second thing. It sounds like everyone's getting ready to leave. Let me take a 30-second break just to grab some water, say goodbye, let them go, kick them in their butts on the way out, and I'll be right back. Yep, we're back inside the numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Maris, the People's Pundit. Don't forget to like the videos if you like them and share them far and wide. Linked to our sponsor, 1775, I just read out, was below, as is the link to the public polling project, which as usual is in the rears. So share it far and wide, do what you can. Hopefully have a solution for this very soon. All right. Hopefully. It's looking like it. But as my pappy used to say, think positive, but don't count your chickens before they hatch, right? I used to love it when I didn't. I love it now that I'm older. I didn't like it at all when he used to say it to me. I would always get my, and I'm a power of positive thinking guy. I am. I believe in that. I don't know if you guys know anything about this or that line of thing, but I am a big subscriber. I believe it is The Secret. Okay. And my dad was much more of a realist. And, I'd always be like, man, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'll never forget the time when I was younger and I had a fight. And I was so happy because my instructor would not let me fight this guy for a long time. He thought I was going to lose and nobody wanted to say it out loud. Right. And it's like the only guy my dad knew. And I was like, I got it. I got the fight, Dad. I was like, oh, this is going to be so good for me. This is going to be so good for me, man. I'm going to, this is going to open up a lot of doors. And, there's the old man listening to New Jersey 101.5 on a Saturday morning or Sunday morning. It's like the oldies for those of you who know that neck of the woods. It was. I don't know what it is now. It's been years, but New Jersey 101.5 used to play the oldies in the weekend, in the mornings, in the weekend. And he used to sit there with his, I think it was the Star Ledger. Or the Asbury Park Press. It was the Asbury Park Press. He used to sit there with his Asbury Park Press, his cup of coffee, his cigarette, listening to 101.5. And he looks up over his paper and, don't count your chickens before they hatch, Tiddly. Don't count your chickens before they hatch. Do you remember that, Dad? Do you remember that? I got my ass kicked. This guy. I mean, don't get me wrong. We beat each other solidly. But I think I'd have to agree. It was like the one time I think I lost. Yeah. I didn't lose by getting knocked out. I lost on points. But thanks for the power of positive thinking, Pops. All right. But it is true. And I try to live by a different standard where you attract what you want in life. The person who is always crying about being late for work, or I'm going to be late for work, is going to get every damn red light on the way to work. If you don't think you're going to be successful in life, you will not be successful in life. If you don't think you're going to do accurate work, you will not do accurate work. I'm telling you, it's it's divinity within us. We're like magnets in the universe. What we put out is what we get. I always tell my kids, and I always have, and now school's going to start in about a month again. And I will tell them, and they don't even have to tell them anymore because they live by this too now. I raised them to live by this. Positive in, positive out, right? What you're drawing into you, what the signals that you're putting out there is what the universe will return you. And if you do not think, if you go into something thinking it's going to be a shitty day, for instance, right? You're going to have a shitty day, right? If you think you're going to have a great day and then new day with new possibilities, new doors that are going to open, that's what's going to happen. Big believer in it. So that's the approach that I am taking for this. And Kate, you guys have noticed I've been very good at keeping things quiet when they need to be kept quiet. There are more secrets to come. One of them obviously isn't a secret anymore, but there is more announcements to come. Just got to keep a tight lip on it. All right. So I may have a solution to this here, but bear with me. All right, let's put these electorates back up on the screen so we can take in the totality as we compare the Republican performance, for instance, to a Donald Trump performance, or even a Donald Trump performance to a other voter performance. Okay, because I need you to understand that it's not just Donald Trump anymore. In 2016, for instance, there still was a voter that was a more educated, higher propensity voter that would come out and vote for a Republican down ballot, but not Donald Trump at the top of the ballot. So Donald Trump needed to change the electorate and bring new people into the electorate in order to defeat Hillary Clinton, which is what he did. However, there were other Republican candidates in different states, in different, various places that earned the votes. By the way, I mentioned one before, Brian Fitzpatrick. He earned the votes of some educated Republican or formerly Republican kind of Mitt Romney Bush voter. He got them. Donald Trump didn't. But these are isolated cases now. And the more time goes on, the fewer of these cases we will be able to identify. Even if Republicans go back to being the complete party of hacks and turn off every new Trump voter who came on because of MAGA, some element of MAGA, it still would not happen overnight. Rational policy decisions aren't made in a single election cycle. That's why trends are something that usually you can identify in small movements until the cascade effect happens. And then it's like the floodgates are opened and it all comes washing and pouring down. And that's what happened to Democrats negatively in 2024. However, while they, while they have been flirting, with voting Republican here and there, and maybe some did for some races and some didn't for others, they are not committed to them at all. They underperformed compared to Donald Trump when he was on the ballot almost everywhere. There are some isolated exceptions, but they are becoming so few and far between, they don't exist anymore. I keep citing different districts in California because those are areas where you're supposed to believe that there are Republicans like David Valadao and Mike Garcia and Michelle Steele and others, even John Duarte, who are supposed to be able to perform better than Donald Trump from the Central Valley to Orange County, because guess what? Those Republicans are moderates. They're not Trumpers, and Trump's toxic in that area. And they're going to be able to survive while Trump will not do well. Meanwhile, 2 of them, or 3, lost, and Donald Trump outperformed them in their districts, often by a lot. In fact, in the case of Duarte, it was 1 point over the national average of how much they underperformed when you put together the competitive districts. So he actually underperformed even more than everybody else did in total combined. That's the gap that Republicans started with going into the 2016 election. Without any other erosion in support, without considering that they ran slightly even worse behind him among the 22 only electorate, meaning they lost the 22 midterms, even though they won the House vote by a larger margin than he won the popular vote. But if you look in these competitive districts and in case of the Senate, competitive Senate races, they ran behind him by an even larger share. So they would basically need to make up that 4-point deficit unless something dramatically changes. Why? Because that's making the assumption that the electorate is still going to look the same, when in all likelihood, it's not. Because Republicans are doing absolutely nothing to change the midterm electorate. This will not happen organically. Especially not like this. Especially not the way things are going. Because these voters now are being marginalized. It's just true. Some of them want no war. They want to focus only on domestic stuff. They don't care if the military-industrial complex gets richer off of Ukraine. They don't care if Israel backed us into a corner and blackmailed us into a corner and, needed us to come run to their rescue. They don't care about Benjamin Netanyahu, who, by the way, is deeply unpopular with a growing number of people, including these people on the right. So this is another thing. Like, the old Republican establishment, all these idiots on Twitter, you don't seem to understand that Bibi Netanyahu is an unpopular dude. His own country cannot stand his ass. He's about to get thrown out of office again, so he started a war. This is what Netanyahu does. The Winston Churchill of my day, Mark Levin says. Give me a motherfucking break. Netanyahu has less than 30% support in his country. 70% of his country think he is unfit to be the prime minister. 70% equally want him removed from office. What are you talking about? And he's not getting any popular here. These people don't care a damn about it. And now today, what? Picture of Bibi Netanyahu with the president, and as he announces he's going to send offensive weapons to Ukraine. And yet the SEALs keep going, oh, this is what he said on the campaign trail. No, it's not. He said he was going to end the war so quick, it'll be like nobody's ever seen before. Give me a break. I mean, at this point, it's just getting ridiculous. Like, I'm not ever going to be willing to sink to that level. It is a 180-degree turn. For others, it's war. For others still, it's holding the deep state accountable and the weaponization of powerful bureaucracies against the little man, against the little man's chosen agent of change, right? And they're not getting it on that front. For others still, it was mass deportations. They're getting amnesty. Those reports are true. So I don't know what's going to be left by the time all of the clapping seals and sycophants marginalize every one-issue voter, right? How many more? Let's be generous and say only 2% care about each of these issues. I just went through 4 issues. That's 8%. Maybe to some others, well, I didn't get to it yet. Maybe to some others, it's just a matter of wage growth and jobs. And honestly, there's a lot the president has done here, and it's a tragedy to him and his voters that the voters don't realize that. They're not crediting him. They're not even seeing much improvement. There's a difference between seeing improvement and not seeing what they were told to fear. So all of the fear and the attempt to panic the markets and scare the markets into selling off, and all over tariffs and all this other stuff, and his trade negotiation strategy, which, by the way, those people supported. Especially those people, but all through the Midwest, if you ask the question correctly, you will see that people, in fact, do support how Donald Trump used tariffs as a negotiating tactic to get better trade deals. They do. And I've been polling this question for years. It's been consistent for years. The only thing that has changed is the number of self-identified liberals who are willing to admit that they do, in fact, support it, because they supported it. Ever since we first asked the question in 2016, they supported it. So, why? How could that be? It doesn't matter if you think he's done this great, and he has. No tax on tips, not letting the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act sunset, work requirements for welfare, various changes in immigration, which the CBO, as usual, doesn't ever score correctly. There's at least $250 trillion, 260 billion estimated saved from illegal immigration, swamping our resources. So that wasn't factored in offsetting the cost of this so-called bill. The so-called cost of this bill. But it doesn't matter, because everything else that has been going on has cast a long shadow over his achievements. And as of right now, he's getting no credit for them. That's the reality. And that's a dire one if you consider everything we just talked about. That it doesn't even matter whether or not he does start to get credit for the economy. He does start to get credit for some of the stuff that he has done and accomplished. It wasn't ever going to be enough in a midterm election, because the dynamics of our political coalitions have changed. Republicans are now in the position they have to pull the inside straight the way that Democrats had to for many, many years. Got to get more young people to vote. Got to get more men to vote. Have to get more non-college voters to vote. Have to get more non-college, non-white, under the age of 50 to vote. You have to get all of these low propensity and marginalized groups to vote. The disabled. Robert and I brought up the disaffected on Viva Fry. Yes, I'm Viva Barnes on Sunday show. We brought up the disaffected. Those who say in the employment index that we do that they're disabled, right, and have just quit on the American dream. Those who say that they are working part-time but are looking for part-time work, right? Those who even now, so many who are like I don't want to say middle-aged, but not student-aged, but are in fact students. They're going back to school and trying to change their life. They're trying to change the direction of their life, their career path. And they've basically given up on the political system. Their instinct is to give up on it. They feel like no matter who they vote for, it's why it's not worth voting. No matter who they vote for, nothing ever changes. It wasn't enough. It was never going to be enough. And frankly, again, you really have only yourselves to blame. If failure to manage expectations, shitting, I mean, the optics game up there is the worst I have seen in a long time. I mean, it is the worst. You have an advanced knowledge, and they did. You have advanced knowledge of a report that says wage growth is going to be the highest it's been in 60 years, and you let Israel's bullshit shit all over that news? Incompetence. No political advisor or consultant worth their weight in salt is going to seriously stand here and argue with me or anybody else who agrees with me that this White House has handled this news, that and others, many, many others. Smart. They haven't. It's been one political catastrophe over another when it comes to messaging. You have the anniversary of your survival from an assassin's bullet coming up. After fantastic news, you got your key legislation bill through the House and Senate and passed. You can take credit for just winning a 12-day war, even though it may be bullshit. You can do it. You're getting nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. Again, best wage growth in 60 years reported. You got all of this stuff, and I'm leaving out stuff. There's a lot more. Immigration, you just got great court rulings. They gave you breathing room to be able to do what you wanted to do. You have all of these wins, and you shit on it by mishandling Epstein. It's not good. No serious person is going to tell you that this is competence and this was handled well. It was not. It was not. I have not seen such bad handling and managing of expectations in a while. And this is kind of surprising. Well, it's surprising given this is supposed to be the ship that's steered by Mrs. Discipline herself. I mean, that is supposed to be the entire virtue. Well, it's not working out. It's not being, the discipline level is just not there. It's not. And the president, for what it's worth, I mean, he's doing his thing and he's chugging along, but that's only ever half the battle. The other half is making the American public see it. The other half is being able to use whatever you can to your advantage to motivate people that you need, to motivate them, not to take advice from some moron who tells you that if you go to social media and tell them to shut the fuck up, they're going to shut the fuck up. That's what politicians do. Some of them didn't add the first vote to their vote history in 2 decades because they were voting for a politician. Don't forget that. Sooner I get done, the sooner we get closes out, the sooner I can get some of this other work done. I mean, I think you're going to find this interesting, locals. I do, but you know, stay tight. It was something else I thought I would share. Oh, yeah. I'm going on a podcast tomorrow. Speaking of which, this speaks to it. The Minnesota GOP, there's a lot of people who understand which path is the right path in a state like that to move. I'm going to be doing a podcast tomorrow that should be interesting. It's kind of early if you're Eastern time. It's early on our side of this big old rock, but I'll post it and keep you privy to that information. If you're up in time to grab it and catch it, you should definitely check it out. If not, watch the replay, but I will share it with you. And there's something else that I'm forgetting about. That's as usual. Without Laura around, I forget about my own schedule all the time. So just keep your eyes on the prize, and whatever I'm missing, she's going to remind me and I'll shoot it out to you. Don't forget, if you like the videos, to like them and share them far and wide. All right. Thank you to 1775 Coffee for sponsoring the show this week, and we will see you tomorrow. All right. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers, folks. Don't forget, the economy is not enough. You have got to change the electorate.